The moment that I decided that I wanted to come to Ukraine would be once you saw on the news how many times there were incidents by the Russian military executing civilians, blatantly targeting civilians, non-combatants. At that point, from a moral point of view, I decided that I didn't want to just sit at home in the relative safety of the United States, and that there are people who need help. And from my experience in the military, in the US military, my experience gained from being deployed to Afghanistan, I felt that though the conflict is different, there are other things that can translate over to assist the Ukrainian people as well as the military. And so from that point on, from seeing the videos of the genocide and mass executions that are occurring, as well as the speeches by President Zelensky, it was motivating me more and more until to the point to where once I started hearing about the counteroffensive that was in preparation during spring and early summer, that's when I decided that I wanted to be a part of this, a shift in the strategy to where an offensive operation has a lot more risk to it. And so with that in a consideration, I really wanted to be a part of it and try and provide as much as I can from my prior experience and training. The process began by navigating to the ildu.com.ua website. From there, I was able to find answers to common questions as well as point of contact information. And I had some questions that needed some clarification, and they were really quick in answering, not more than just a few minutes. From there, I submitted the application as well as any supporting documents that I had to the email provided on the website. And within a couple weeks, I had a representative from one of the units that wanted to recruit me to schedule an interview. And from there, it was just a matter of me getting to Ukraine. The biggest myth I would say that I have personally experienced since my time here in Ukraine has been that they are a nation of Nazis or any type of racism. I personally have not experienced any form of discrimination or hate due to my race. And so I would say by far the biggest myth that you would hear about for the Ukrainian people is anything of racism.
Dobrý den, my name is Khan. I am with Chosen Company of the 59th Motorized Brigade, and I've been in Ukraine for the past 6 months. Currently, I'm actually on my way back to the unit. I took a couple weeks vacation where I spent time in the Czech Republic and Germany. I went there to go see some friends, some personal friends, some old friends from the Army, and then some of our guys that are actually in Germany. Chosen Company is a very highly motivated and always in high spirits. Even with some of the setbacks that we've had, we've always continued to move forward, continue the fight. It's definitely been a learning experience for a lot of us, and no matter what's been thrown at us, we've learned from it and continued to move forward. With that, our operations have been across the entire spectrum: offensive, defensive operations, defending bunkers, trenches, and then performing QRF for supporting units, assaulting trenches and positions, dismounted, mounted, small man raids, various observation and sniper operations. So just about anything that could be done, we've been doing it. I would say as far as what I was expecting compared to what I learned is that it is a lot more chaotic now. The battlefield itself, before I was so used to pretty much all the conditions being set by us for the most part. All assets in the air or around you were mostly yours because In Afghanistan, we owned everything, the ground, the skies, the night. But come here, you find out that that's not the case. In fact, things are on equal terms. Some things we have the advantage, some things we're in the disadvantage. So it's really taught me that you really have to be able to do the best that you can with what you got, and then also do the best at what you can with the disadvantages. What are you short on? What's the best way to overcome that? And just finding as good of information as possible, because drones, for example, is a new aspect to battlefields, and not all the time are all the drones going to be yours or the enemy's. You'll have mixed skies, Ukrainian and Russian drones both at the same time. It's a lot of information to take in, and it adds a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration when making decisions. And so you definitely have to do a lot more things on the fly, and you have to be so flexible, is what I've definitely learned. It's hard to say if I regret not being able to come at the start of the invasion. I know I really wanted to be here at the beginning, but unfortunately, due to the process itself and just bad information, I wasn't able to. I don't necessarily feel too bad, just because it really depends on who you talk to, and then their experiences that you gauge from them. It was a real flip of the coin from what it seemed like. And so I got lucky this time around. I went to a really good unit, and it's left me with really good impressions, and I'm glad to be with these guys. If I had gotten here in the beginning and ended up in a bad unit, there's a possibility that I would have done some time and then just gone home and pretty much left Ukraine behind me and not looked back. So yes, there's some regret not being able to be here at the start, but at the same time, not being at the start got me where I am today. So. When it comes to the adrenaline on the battlefield, I would say it's almost like when you think that you just can't go any further and something happens, you just get that sudden rush, and it's almost like a second wind. Like you're getting pushed in the back, like you can't go forward, or just how time itself seems to not go normal. There were times to where in the situation I thought 20 minutes had gone by, but then when I look back at the GoPro footage, an hour has gone by. So it's crazy to think how much adrenaline can affect your body without you even realizing it. And I've heard guys that got wounded to where there were some wounds they didn't even feel. They knew something had happened. They knew they got hit, but they didn't feel pain, or some guys just had no idea whatsoever. So, and out of everything I've done as a civilian and for my time in the Army, I don't think anything has come remotely close to it. And I can't imagine what else could possibly come close to it. I would say that personally, I'm not superstitious. I tried to avoid superstition by controlling as many things as possible and just accepting what things I can't control. I think superstition is something that others do carry. I know there is one superstition in particular that sort of floats around in our unit, and I've seen some guys act on that, make their decisions on what they were going to do based on that superstition. So I would say superstition itself does exist. Me personally, I don't really believe in it too much. If anything, I try to disprove superstition, or, just to kind of relieve some of the guys. Gut feelings, I 100% do listen to. I don't always go with my gut feeling, but I will take it into consideration. There have been times to where I felt like I had to do one thing, but then ended up doing something else. And was it the better decision? It's hard to say. You only know one outcome, and that was what happened. So, but I 100% listen to my gut. I don't always listen to it or do what my gut tells me to, but I do take it into consideration. I would say probably one of the biggest things that people should do to prepare to come to Ukraine is to, first off, be 100% sure that this is something that you are willing to commit to. We've had a lot of guys show up and then leave after a couple of days before they even sign contracts, because they taste a small glimpse of the reality of this war and then realize that it's not for them. With that, I would say physical fitness is something that a lot of people show up to Ukraine neglecting, not realizing how important it is, and not realizing that, if you're out of shape, if you can't keep up, you are a liability. If someone around you gets injured and you can't carry them out because you're injured, then, that person's life is at risk. If your unit is having to stop or slow down because you can't keep up, your whole unit is at risk. So I would say a lot of people do neglect physical fitness, but people really need to realize that if they're 100% sure this is something they want to do, that they are prepared physically and mentally. It is physically exhausting, especially the nature of some of the obstacles that you have to overcome, whether it's, a shallow, narrow trench, or if it's a mass amount of debris and rubble that you're having to traverse over. It really takes a toll on your body quickly, and sometimes you don't realize how quick it does take a toll on you, especially when you're wearing, your full kit and you've got, like us, 10 plus mags, 10 grenades, some other explosives, your weapon, maybe an assault pack. It is very, very physically demanding. And then when you start to reach the point of mental exhaustion, then that amplifies or compounds onto the state of physical exhaustion and makes it even worse. Which, to go back, why physical fitness is so important, it's the longer you can last before hitting that point, then the better you'll be. Because as soon as you start getting physically exhausted, then it's vice versa. It starts to take a toll on your mind. As far as constant tiredness, I wouldn't say constant tiredness, especially once things start to happen. You really can. It's almost like that second wind effect. You get that burst of energy. You're alert, you're more alert, especially when the adrenaline starts to kick in. Tiredness really becomes an afterthought. But then as soon as things start to slow down again, and then it's just you, your buddies, and the surrounding area, then you start to notice it kind of kick in. So I would say it's not constant, but once you hit that point of exhaustion, then it comes and goes depending on what's going on. But luckily, we do get time to rest. We do various types of rotations, also depending on the op itself. If we have to sit in a trench or whatever, we'll rotate guys in and out of that trench, or even if it's a bunker, so you're not there for an extended period of time, constantly coming back and then going right back out. We do our best to ensure that guys get adequate rest in between operations, and even just before an operation, we'll train up for it. But then just before it, we'll give guys some time. We basically just call it mandatory rest before they step off, just to make sure that they're fully ready to go. I do know quite a few people in my unit have talked about staying in Ukraine once the war is over, especially there are some guys who, have already married a Ukrainian. Some guys have pretty much already gotten into serious relationships with other Ukrainian women. And then, some guys have already talked about what businesses they're going to open once the war is over. And, we often joke about, where are we all going to get land together and, start our own little town type of thing, just joking around. Myself, I haven't quite made a decision yet. I know I want to come here. Like when the war is over, I don't want that to be the last time I'm ever in Ukraine. Especially after being here for 6 months and fighting alongside Ukrainians, meeting many Ukrainians. It's you really do start to think of it like a home away from home. But as far as permanently living here, I haven't quite made that decision yet. I think that's just kind of one of those things where time will tell. So. Oh, one thing I will say. So, I know one of the big events coming up is the presidential elections for the United States of 2024. And with that, one of the big topics is the support for Ukraine. And while I know in the US, many people will say, why should we send money abroad to another country, helping them with their war when we have our own problems? And I've been asked that quite a few times as well. Why should the US continue to support Ukraine? Why should Germany, the UK, why should anybody else use their own money and materials to support Ukraine when they have their own problems? And what I often tell them is that sometimes a little bit of sacrifice to your standard of living back home is better when it's going to help and support people that are losing everything. They're in the US and UK, France, Germany, we have the choice to help in any way, And in Ukraine, there are people in need that did not choose this war. They did not pick to be invaded. They didn't ask for this. They're just trying to get by, and there are families literally losing everything. Their loved ones, their homes, and everything that they've had in life. And so with that, while I understand we do have our own domestic problems back home in the States, my message to key figures, politicians back home is that I don't want the topic of Ukraine to be seen as a dividing point in our country. I truly think that this fight, even though it is in Europe, it's a noble one for us to support Ukraine.